Thanks again for tuning in to Millennial Diligence. I'm your host, Tom. I just wanted to go over a few of the responses from this week. You guys killed it again in the comment section. I've been really enjoying reading all your feedback on the topics I've chosen. I'd love for you guys to submit some topics you want me to talk about and do a little research on going forward. The lifeblood of this channel is your comments, and I really appreciate each one, and I try to read and respond to each one. This week I read an article all about millennials' favorite car brands, and you guys had some interesting responses to that video. Top comment: I drive Dodge because it was my first car my parents got me during the Cash for Clunkers fire sale when U.S. autos were bankrupt in 2008. It still goes, but bought my own when I could afford. So it's interesting. Like back in 2008, they had the whole Cash for Clunkers thing, and I think a lot of people got in on deals back then, basically. Esteban says, I currently drive a paid-off 5-speed 2011 Mazda 2 with 175,000 on the clock. It's an econo box, but completely reliable, and for that I'm happy. Before my little Mazda 2 I drove my first and last finance car. It was a supercharged 6-speed 2006 Mini Cooper S at 24.6%. Yes, I still throw up a bit at the interest. I think a lot of these comments reflected the fact that financing a car, especially at a ridiculous interest rate like that, is never ideal. And having a paid-off car, one that's reliable, it's going to save you so much money in the long run. It's almost always the safe bet, almost always, to buy the car outright. He finishes by saying, I eventually managed to fix the Mini and sold it dirt cheap on Facebook. Because of this, I swore I would never be in this predicament and have foregone debt to this day. Thankfully, I can now say I have a great, reliable car. I have a 6-month emergency fund and can live on half my monthly income. This is the whole thing. This is a big part of why I made this channel, is to impress upon people my age the importance of getting out of and staying out of consumer debt. Car debt is a killer. So after this guy paid off that Mini and he got totally out of debt, he was able to save all that money he was putting towards that ridiculous car loan at 24.6% and build his emergency fund, make investments, that kind of thing. Axel says, I have a 2022 Honda Accord and absolutely love it. I hope to still be driving it in 15 years. So here's an example of a viewer that bought a newer car and they're hoping that it's going to last, they'll eventually pay it off and it'll keep going. Now, I'm a little biased. I've owned 2 Hondas in my life and both have been extremely reliable. So I think he's on the right track here. Another one here. I drive a 2019 GM Terrain SLT. It gets the job done. I'm not paying a quarter of a mortgage for a car. That's the whole thing. Not only are interest rates going up for these cars, the actual price of these cars has been insane the last few years. They've gone through the roof. Now I feel like they're starting to taper off. Things are starting to fall, especially in the private party market. But yeah, you're talking about $80,000, $90,000, $100,000 trucks. Like, this is insane. Moving on to the video I did about kids moving back in or still living with their parents between the ages of 18 to 29. Some of the responses for this video were very eye-opening and I really appreciate them. Top comment: I don't see an issue with living with your family if you're able to contribute to the household. I never understood the need to branch out and be on your own when there's the convenience of everything at home. Especially after COVID and all the issues going on in the world right now, you want to be there with your family when you can while you still have the chance. I think this comment touches on the idea that as long as it's mutually beneficial for everyone involved, I think you should go ahead and do it. And another thing, your parents aren't going to be around forever, so you do want to use that quality time while you still have it, as long as it's amicable, because we also had another comment. Mine just moved out. Thank you, sweet Jesus, LOL. We almost threw a party when they moved out. They're always welcome back, but damn, it feels good they moved out. 10 toes down, time to live your lives now. So there you go. 2 sides of the same coin, basically. These parents are just glad to have them out of the house. So I don't know if it was just fatigue or maybe the parents were getting a little bit taken advantage of. You got to be careful with these situations. Resentments can build if one party feels like they're being taken advantage of. If you're not communicating well, it can really spiral and eventually seriously harm the relationship. So I appreciate that comment. Josh Piper with another insightful comment. Makes sense. A younger person's not going to be earning enough on average to live alone. If you have the option to live with folks and help with stuff around the home / some expenses, then it can be good. I understand people wanting to be fully independent, but if you have to work all the time just to barely be able to afford a crumbly apartment, that seems like a raw deal. After rent, food, utilities, and other basic expenses, most younger people won't be able to save a dime. So staying at home makes sense if you have that option. Having the option to move home is something that should be considered in this day and age, especially for young people. If you're making minimum wage, you're not going to be able to afford to live alone. And in my opinion, it would be better to stay with your folks if that situation is doable and amicable, rather than moving in with strangers and seeing what happens, you know? Esteban with a comment. As a millennial, I'll be the first to acknowledge that I judge friends or people in general who still live with parents. I legitimately bought Americans' way of thinking that if you're 18 plus, you ought to move out by yourself. I'm Puerto Rican. Fast forward to today, and I wish my family lived in the US so we could all live together and help each other out. I make $63,000 in Central Florida as a local truck driver and can live on half. I've no debt. But I gotta work 62 hours on average to make that. I'd sure love to hit the bench and take 5, lol. So that's the whole thing. Like he's acknowledging the idea that when he was growing up and when I was growing up, it was generally considered normal and preferable for you to move out on your own. But he's also saying that, I mean, if he had the choice, he would live with his family and they would all help, they would pool their resources and they would share responsibility. I think that's a great approach, and I think we're going to start seeing a lot more of that as time goes on and things get more expensive. And finally, from Haters Appreciate, I know some people might find it embarrassing or feel shamed on, but I would rather live with my family with a roof over my head than be struggling to pay bills and supporting other needs. Some people legit went homeless or to jail because of the COVID lockdowns. Another good point. I mean, shared responsibility, pool your resources. If it all works for the family unit, I don't think it should be so stigmatized to move in back with your folks. Thank you so much for all these comments, guys. Yeah, another week in the books. I appreciate all the support. We're coming up on 800 subscribers, and I really appreciate you guys commenting and giving me all this good feedback. I wanted to start this channel just to get a kind of a temperature gauge of what everyone out there is feeling and just seeing if we can come up with some kind of shared solutions to a lot of these issues we're facing, because let's face it, we're going to have to work together. Thanks again for tuning in to Millennial Diligence. My name's Tom. We'll see you in the next one.